Welcome back to Crime Documentary Files. In this episode, we're diving into two Korean cases, both packed with jaw-dropping twists that shook the nation. Let's begin with a mysterious case that unfolded in January 2020. A wealthy Korean man was found dead inside a hotel room on Boracay Island in the Philippines. After an initial investigation, police concluded that he had died of acute heart failure brought on by alcohol poisoning. At the time, the COVID-19 pandemic was rapidly spreading across the globe. The victim's family was unable to travel to the Philippines due to travel restrictions, so they entrusted a friend, who had accompanied the victim on the trip, to handle the funeral arrangements. But not long after, strange inconsistencies began to surface. The family grew suspicious and urged Korean authorities to reopen the case. Eventually, the shocking truth came to light. So, who killed him? And why? Let's uncover the full story. The victim was Kim Min-woo, born in 1980. He came from a modest working-class family and had a younger brother 3 years his junior. Despite limited means, the family of four lived a peaceful and content life. When Min-woo was just 3 years old, he suffered a burn to the top of his head in an accident. The wound healed, but his hair never grew back in that area. Since then, he always wore a hat when going out. At school, his physical difference made him shy and reserved. He kept a low profile and rarely interacted with his classmates. That changed during middle school when he befriended a classmate named Park Sung-hyun, the only person who approached him without judgment. Over time, the two became close friends. Min-woo was extremely meticulous and had a strong preference for cleanliness. His room was always spotless, with everything neatly arranged. Although he didn't attend a prestigious university, he developed a passion for photography during college and joined a well-known photography club. After graduating, Min-woo bounced between unstable jobs until he landed a position at a safety shoe manufacturing plant where he worked for over 10 years. The salary wasn't high, but he remained diligent and disciplined. He once told his mother, "I'm going to save 70% of my paycheck every month. Once I hit 100 million won, I'll quit and finally enjoy life. Maybe travel the world." And he meant it. Min-woo lived frugally, spending only on essentials. He didn't smoke, drink, or indulge in bad habits. But he wasn't stingy, far from it. Every year, he bought meaningful birthday gifts for Park Sung-hyun and even treated Sung-hyun's children with toys on their birthdays. He deeply valued the friendship and even trusted Park enough to share the passcode to his apartment's digital lock. By early 2019, Min-woo had finally achieved his goal. His savings reached 120 million won, equivalent to about $84,000. He resigned from his job and took a few months off to rest. In April 2019, at the age of 39, Min-woo traveled abroad for the very first time. He chose Boracay, Philippines, a tropical paradise that left him with beautiful, unforgettable memories. In January 2020, Kim Min-woo invited his close friend, Park Sung-hyun, to join him on a trip to Boracay Island. He wanted his friend to experience the joy and beauty of the island that had left such a strong impression on him the year before. On January 16, 2020, the two flew together to Boracay, Philippines. But Min-woo had no idea that this second trip would be his last. At around 8:30 a.m. on January 17th, a hotel receptionist in Boracay called the local police, reporting that a man appeared to be dead in one of their rooms. When officers arrived at the scene, they confirmed that the man was Kim Min-woo, who had just checked in the day before. His friend, Park Sung-hyun, was unharmed. With the help of a translator, Park gave police a detailed account of their movements since arriving on the island. In the early morning of January 16th, they landed at Cataclan Airport. From there, they took a shuttle bus to their pre-booked hotel. Upon arrival, Min-woo complained of a severe headache, likely from travel fatigue. Park went to the front desk to request painkillers. After taking the medicine, Min-woo felt better, and they spent the rest of the morning resting in their room. By lunchtime, Min-woo's headache had completely disappeared. That afternoon, the two friends swam at the beach and enjoyed themselves. During dinner, they consumed a significant amount of alcohol. They didn't return to the hotel until around 10 p.m. Still in the mood to hang out, Park suggested they visit a nearby bar. They left the hotel again at about 11 p.m. and returned roughly 2 hours later, around 1:13 a.m. At 2:08 a.m., they went out once more to a convenience store near the hotel, where they bought more alcohol and some snacks. By 2:15 a.m., they were back in their hotel room and continued drinking until dawn before finally going to sleep. Around 8 a.m. on January 17th, Park woke up first. Seeing Minwoo still asleep, he let him rest. At 8:25 a.m., Park stepped out alone for a short 6-minute walk. When he returned to the room, he tried to wake Minwoo so they could explore the area together, but Minwoo didn't respond. Sensing that something was wrong, Park immediately called for hotel staff assistance. Police conducted a thorough investigation of the scene. They found no signs of struggle or forced entry. Security camera footage matched Park Sung-hyun's statement almost exactly. 2 days later, the autopsy results were released. According to the report, Kim Minwoo died from acute heart failure brought on by alcohol poisoning. In addition, traces of sleeping medication were found in his system. When questioned, Park told police that Minwoo occasionally had trouble sleeping and sometimes took sleeping pills to help him rest. Since no suspicious evidence was found at the scene, the Philippine police quickly closed the case. But the truth behind Minwoo's death was far from simple. A horrifying secret was about to be revealed. The Philippine authorities reported the results of their investigation to the Korean consulate in the Philippines. Kim Soo-jin, the consular assistant, contacted Minwoo's family with the help of Park Sung-hyun. At first, Minwoo's family thought it was a scam call and hung up. It wasn't until the Korean police intervened that they finally believed the devastating news. Minwoo had passed away. His mother was heartbroken. "My son only went abroad for a few days. How could he possibly be dead?" At the time, international travel had become extremely difficult due to the global spread of COVID-19. Minwoo's family was unable to travel to the Philippines to handle funeral arrangements. Even worse, the cost of transporting his body back to Korea was far beyond what they could afford. In the end, they had no choice but to entrust Park Sung-hyun with managing the cremation and returning the ashes. On January 22, 2020, Park returned to Korea with Minwoo's ashes. At the airport, he handed over the urn and Minwoo's suitcase to the family. But something felt off. Park Sung-hyun showed no emotion. He looked detached, avoided conversation, said a quick goodbye, and left in a hurry. Minwoo's family assumed he was simply exhausted from the long flight and didn't think too much of it at the time. Back home, Minwoo's mother began organizing his belongings. When she opened the suitcase, she was stunned. Everything was a mess. Items were thrown around carelessly, as if someone had rifled through it. This immediately raised red flags. Minwoo was known for being extremely meticulous. Even when traveling, he always packed and organized his luggage with care. To make matters worse, she noticed that Minwoo's gold ring and cell phone, both of which he always carried, were missing. She quickly texted Park, "Did you happen to see Minwoo's gold ring and his phone? I couldn't find them in the suitcase." Park replied, "They were lost when we went swimming." Although she wasn't fully convinced, Minwoo's mother had no solid evidence to dispute him, so she let it go, for the time being. A few days later, the family held a funeral service for Minwoo in Korea. They informed Park, but he didn't show up. A week later, Park sent a text message to the family. It read, "Has Minwoo's urn been buried yet? There's something I didn't mention at the airport, but I feel I need to now. Before he passed, Minwoo borrowed 60 million won from me. Because it was a large amount, he wrote an IOU and had it notarized. There were 2 copies. One is in Minwoo's house. You can check it. I'm truly saddened by what happened, but this is a significant sum. I hope the family can repay the debt on Minwoo's behalf." Minwoo's family was deeply unsettled by the message. All they could do was reply politely, "Thank you for letting us know the details. Let's meet in person and talk." But in their hearts, a major question loomed. Did Minwoo really borrow that money? The family immediately went to Minwoo's home, and shockingly, they actually found the IOU that Park Sung-hyun had mentioned. It was signed by both of them. On the surface, it looked legitimate, like Min-woo had truly borrowed the money. But Min-woo's mother just couldn't believe it. "My son has always been frugal," she told herself. "He rarely spends money. Why would he take out such a large loan?" She quickly called Park Sung-hyun and asked, "Min-woo was careful with money his whole life. Do you know why he would borrow that much?" Park replied, "Honestly, I'm not sure. When I loaned him the money, I did ask, 'Why do you need such a large sum? You're not gambling, are you?' But Min-woo told me, 'Don't ask what the money is for.'" Min-woo's mother pressed further, "Are you sure there's not something else going on here?" Park suddenly snapped, "Why are you asking me that? I'm the one who's owed money. If you want answers, ask your son." And with that, he hung up. His hostile attitude left the family even more confused. Min-woo had never mentioned anything about borrowing money, and he had already saved 100 million won. So why would he need another 60 million won? And could that money somehow be tied to his sudden death? A few days later, Min-woo's family contacted the Korean police. They shared all their suspicions, hoping an official investigation would be reopened. The police didn't hesitate. They reached out to the Philippine authorities and quickly obtained both the autopsy report and the case file. After reviewing the documents, Korean investigators immediately noticed several red flags. The autopsy confirmed that Min-woo's blood alcohol level was extremely high. He was heavily intoxicated at the time of death. It also noted the presence of sleeping pills in his system. The case file included Park Sung-hyun's statement, which claimed that the two had consumed a lot of alcohol on the evening of January 16th. But anyone with even basic medical knowledge knows this. Combining sleeping pills and alcohol is extremely dangerous and can be fatal. Earlier, we mentioned that Min-woo didn't usually drink. So why, on that night, would he take sleeping pills and drink heavily? Clearly, something wasn't adding up. When police asked the family if Min-woo had any sleep disorders or needed medication to fall asleep, his mother firmly replied, "Min-woo never had trouble sleeping. He never took sleeping pills." This clue pointed to a chilling possibility. Someone may have secretly drugged Min-woo without his knowledge, then encouraged him to drink heavily, leading to his death. Police began to suspect that the person who had given Min-woo the sleeping pills was none other than his closest friend, Park Sung-hyun. A full-scale investigation into Park was quickly launched. Park was also born in 1980, just a few months older than Min-woo. In South Korea, there's a unique cultural tradition. Younger individuals are expected to respect their elders, sometimes even obey them without question. Because of this dynamic, Park often took a dominant role in their friendship. From a young age, Park had a reputation for being opportunistic and manipulative. During school exams, he would frequently cheat by copying other students' answers. He also had a violent streak. On one occasion, he slashed another student's face with a small knife over a minor disagreement. After graduating, Park never held a steady job. He spent most of his time wandering aimlessly and was known for riding around on a flashy motorcycle, trying to look cool. One former classmate told police, "I never understood why Min-woo was even friends with Park. Park always talked behind his back, calling him an idiot." As the investigation progressed, police uncovered a major clue. In early 2018, Min-woo's bank account held 120 million won. In March 2018, he transferred 60 million won out, and the recipient was Park Sung-hyun. A former co-worker of Min-woo recalled, "I remember hearing that Min-woo lent a friend 60 million won. I even told him to get a written IOU, but he said, 'He's my best friend. I can't treat him like that.'" Further investigation revealed that in April 2018, Park opened a tattoo shop. The renovation alone cost over 40 million won. The shop's landlord told police, "After opening, Park only came by every few months. Business was terrible, hardly any customers at all." Despite the struggling business, Park never missed a rent payment, and he showed no signs of stress. Every time he showed up, he was riding a brand new, expensive motorcycle. "I honestly thought he came from a wealthy family," the landlord said. This painted a clear picture. Park had likely used the 60 million won loan from Min-woo to fund his tattoo shop. So then, What was the story behind the IOU Park had produced? Police immediately examined the document and quickly determined that it was a forgery. Even more alarming, police discovered that for 6 months leading up to Min-woo's death, about 650,000 won was being withdrawn from his account every month to pay for an insurance policy. Upon contacting the insurance company, police learned that in June 2019, Min-woo had purchased an accidental death insurance policy with a payout of 700 million won, roughly 490,000 US dollars. And the sole beneficiary? Exactly as police had suspected, Park Sung-hyun. A senior insurance expert told investigators, "I've worked in this industry for over 20 years. I've never seen anyone name a friend as the beneficiary of an accidental death policy. That's extremely unusual." He added, "The policy structure makes no sense. Min-woo was required to pay 650,000 won per month for 25 months. That's far beyond what someone with his income could afford." So then, who created this policy for Min-woo in the first place? Police didn't have to wait long. The answer was soon revealed. The person who designed the insurance policy for Kim Min-woo was Mr. Heo, a longtime employee at an insurance company. But he had another identity as well. He had been a close friend of Park Sung-hyun for many years. Together, they conspired to create the insurance policy, then convinced Min-woo to buy it. Shockingly, some of the signatures on the paperwork were forged by Mr. Heo, signing on Min-woo's behalf. This was the turning point. All signs now pointed to a horrifying conclusion. Park Sung-hyun may have murdered Min-woo to collect the insurance payout. Still, one acquaintance familiar with Park said, "Park isn't smart enough to come up with something like this on his own. Someone must have coached him." And that someone was very likely Mr. Heo. But where did Park get the sleeping pills? They're regulated substances, not easy to obtain without a prescription. As investigators dug deeper, Park's wife became a central focus. She worked as a nurse assistant at a hospital. In early 2019, Park went to the hospital where his wife worked, claiming he was suffering from insomnia. A doctor prescribed him sleeping pills. Later on, his wife began regularly acquiring sleeping medications under the excuse that Park couldn't sleep. From March to December 2019, she accessed multiple types of sleeping pills. This timeline suggested something chilling. Park may have started planning Min-woo's murder as early as 2019. There was another disturbing incident that raised further suspicion. In October 2019, Min-woo's home caught fire. It took 8 fire trucks to fully extinguish the blaze. According to the fire department, the cause of the fire was clothes piled on top of an overloaded power strip, which triggered an electrical short circuit. But Min-woo didn't believe that conclusion. He was known for being extremely neat and organized, and he told friends he never left clothes scattered like that. Still, with no solid evidence to challenge the investigation, he accepted the official ruling. Now here's where it gets eerie. Min-woo had purchased the insurance policy in June 2019, and just 3 months later, a mysterious fire broke out in his home. Was that really a coincidence? Putting the pieces together paints a dark picture. In early 2018, Min-woo reached his goal of saving 100 million won. It's very likely he shared that news with Park Sung-hyun. That may have been the moment Park began planning his death. And Mr. Heo, he was likely the one who gave Park the idea and the means. In October 2021, Park Sung-hyun was officially arrested for forging the IOU and attempting insurance fraud. His friend Mr. Heo was also arrested and charged with insurance fraud. In the end, Park was sentenced to 2 years and 6 months in prison for attempted fraud. Mr. Heo received a 2-year prison sentence for his role in the insurance scam. Park's wife was fined 2 million won for illegally acquiring prescription medication. But it didn't end there. In May 2023, police filed formal murder charges against Park Sung-hyun. From behind bars, Park continued to deny everything. Kim Min-woo's death was his own doing, he insisted. It had nothing to do with me. Police then asked the question that silenced the room. If that's true, then why were you the sole beneficiary of Kim Min-woo's life insurance? Park Sung-hyun shamelessly responded. He wrote it voluntarily. What was I supposed to do? If you want to know why, you should ask Kim Min-woo. Since Min-woo's body had already been cremated, police were unable to obtain any further physical evidence. Legally speaking, all the evidence they had was circumstantial. There was a real possibility that Park Sung-hyun could be declared not guilty. And if he were found not guilty of murder, he would still be eligible to receive the 700 million won insurance payout. So now we turn the question over to you. Do you think Park Sung-hyun will actually get the money? Let us know what you think in the comments below. And now, let's move on to case number 2. In January 2025, a bombshell announcement shook South Korea's legal system. A prisoner serving a life sentence was declared innocent during a retrial and walked free after 25 years behind bars. This marked not only the longest wrongful imprisonment ever overturned in a retrial in Korean history, but also the first time a life-sentenced inmate had been released through this process. Even more shocking, this inmate wasn't a hardened criminal or career offender. She was a petite young woman who had spent her entire youth in prison. So what exactly happened? And why did she lose 25 years of her life behind bars? To understand, we need to go back to the beginning. March 7, 2000. At 5:50 a.m., a local resident discovered a man lying dead near a bus stop on Wando Island, located in South Jeolla Province, South Korea. When police arrived, they identified the victim as Kim Jae-hoon, a 52-year-old man with a level 3 physical disability who lived roughly 4.3 miles away from the bus stop. At the scene, police found scattered fragments of a car's turn signal light, leading them to initially classify the incident as a hit-and-run traffic accident. But something didn't sit right. If the impact had been strong enough to shatter a car light, then the victim should have shown external injuries or even broken bones. Yet the autopsy revealed no bruises or fractures, and no internal bleeding. Instead, what was found in his system was far more disturbing. A blood alcohol concentration of 0.303% and a lethal dose, 1,302 micrograms per milliliter, of the sleep aid doxylamine. This raised a critical question. With that much alcohol and medication in his system, enough to cause unconsciousness or death, how could Kim Jae-hoon, a man who limped with one leg, possibly have walked 4.3 miles to a bus stop? Investigators developed a new theory. Someone may have spiked his drink with sleeping pills, then transported his unconscious or deceased body by car, leaving it by the road to stage a fake accident. Given the level of planning, the suspect was likely someone familiar with the victim. As detectives began digging into Kim Jae-hoon's relationships, an unexpected twist occurred. At dawn on March 9th, just 2 days after the body was found, his eldest daughter, Kim Shin-hae, walked into the police station and confessed to murdering her father. Kim Jae-hoon had 3 children. Kim Shin-hae, age 23, from his first marriage, a 19-year-old son, and a 16-year-old daughter from his second wife. Shin-hae was living in Seoul and worked as a stage actress. From the outside, the family seemed perfectly normal. So when news of her confession broke, the entire village was stunned. In reality, police had already placed Kim Shin-hae on their suspect list. Why? Because she had arrived on Wando Island around midnight on the day of her father's death, but didn't arrive at her grandmother's house until 5:30 a.m. That 4.5-hour window aligned suspiciously with her father's estimated time of death, and she had no alibi for it. According to police reports, Shin-hae admitted that she crushed 30 sleeping pills, mixed them into alcohol, and tricked her father into drinking it, telling him it was liver tonic. After he drank it, she took him out for a drive. While on the road, the medication took effect, and he died in the car. She then dumped his body near the bus stop, staged the scene to look like a hit and run, and fled, arriving at her grandmother's house hours later. So why did Kim Shin-hae kill her father? What was her motive and intent? According to her initial confession, 2 months before the incident, Shin-hae learned that her half-sister had been sexually assaulted by their father. This revelation triggered painful memories. Shin-hae herself had been abused by him in high school. Enraged, she decided to take revenge and end her father's life. In the months leading up to the crime, Kim Shin-hai purchased 8 traffic accident insurance policies under her father's name, with total premiums amounting to 350,000 won, a considerable sum. So the question arose, was this a revenge killing or a calculated plan for insurance fraud? During a search of Shin-hai's home, police made a chilling discovery. In one of her notebooks, they found detailed notes that mirrored the crime scene almost exactly. Calculations of potential insurance payouts, references to mixing alcohol with sleeping pills, mentions of cars, mirrors, broken glass, the word murder, domestic violence, and even suspicious death scenarios. It looked less like coincidence and more like a blueprint for premeditated murder. And the evidence didn't end there. There was also a witness statement from her uncle. He told police that Kim Shin-hai had personally confessed to killing her father during the funeral. He was the first person to call the authorities and also the one who encouraged her to turn herself in. Her younger brother and sister also backed her original claim, confirming that their father had sexually abused them. With all these elements in place, no alibi, a clear motive, an insurance payout, incriminating notes, a confession, and witness testimony, there seemed to be only one conclusion. Kim Shin-hai was guilty. At that point, most people thought the case was clear-cut, but suddenly, everything changed. Shin-hai reversed her confession. Starting with the crime scene reenactment, she withdrew everything she had previously admitted. She now denied killing her father, and even went so far as to say that the entire story about being sexually abused wasn't true. With such overwhelming evidence against her, and the fact that she had voluntarily confessed, many saw this sudden reversal as desperate backpedaling. But others began to wonder, was there more to this story than met the eye? Shin-hai claimed her confession wasn't made voluntarily, she had been coerced by her uncle. She said that around 11 p.m. on March 8th, during her father's funeral, her uncle pulled her aside and said, "Your younger brother killed your father. If you don't take the fall and confess, he'll be in serious trouble." Under that emotional pressure, she said, she went to the police and falsely admitted to the crime. But in reality, her brother had a solid alibi that evening and couldn't have committed the murder. As the investigation continued, police uncovered a disturbing family dynamic. The story about the father sexually abusing his daughters? It had been fabricated by the adults in the family. Why? Because they believed that if Shin-hai's motive could be tied to years of abuse, the court might show leniency and reduce her sentence. Under intense pressure from the adults, her siblings went along with the lie. And just as the family had hoped, public opinion began to shift. As news spread that Shin-hai had been a victim of sexual abuse, villagers sympathized with her and even submitted petitions asking for leniency. Still, there were lingering questions. Why did Kim Shin-hai return to her hometown on the exact day her father died? And what about the 4-hour window during which she had no alibi? Was it truly coincidence or something far more deliberate? Faced with growing suspicion from police, Kim Shin-hai offered an explanation and recalled the events before and after the incident in detail, insisting that her timeline wasn't without evidence. She stated that a week before the incident, on March 1st, she and her younger brother drove from Seoul to Wando Island. They had planned to return to the city the same day, but her brother suddenly decided to stay at their grandmother's house for a few more days. So Kim Shin-hai returned to Seoul alone. Coincidentally, she had plans to attend a housewarming party near Wando on March 5th, so she figured she would pick up her brother on the way back to Seoul the next day. But on the morning of the party, something unexpected happened. Her car was hit by an unknown object while parked outside her home. The vehicle had to be taken in for repairs, which delayed her travel plans. She called her friend to apologize for not making it, but because everyone had other commitments, they couldn't wait. After the party, everyone went home, and Shin-hai missed the gathering entirely. She then called her brother to offer money for a bus ticket, but he refused. He insisted she come pick him up in person. Left with no choice, Kim Shin-hai rented a car and left for Wando at 6 p.m. on March 6th. That evening, she also arranged to meet 2 old friends, Park and Kwon, for a chat. While on her way home after stopping at the Daejeon rest area, she called her father to let him know she was coming. At the time, he was drinking with 2 local villagers at home. He told her to drive safely and come home to eat the chicken porridge he had made. The two villagers later confirmed they had heard the phone conversation between Kim Jae-hoon and his daughter. They also heard her gently scold her father and encourage him to stop drinking. According to witnesses, Kim Shin-hae had a close relationship with her father. She frequently showed concern for his health and often told him to drink less. Records show she arrived in Wando at 12:55 a.m. on March 7th, with her vehicle captured on a traffic checkpoint camera. She said she didn't go straight home because she wanted to meet her friends first. Around 1 a.m., she used a public payphone near the village entrance to call Park and Kwan, but because it was so late, both declined to come out. She then called her grandmother's house. Her younger sister answered, saying that their brother and grandmother were already asleep, and she herself was working on a drawing. She also told Shin-hae that their father seemed drunk and had just gotten into an argument with their grandparents. Shin-hae explained that her father became irritable when drinking, and once he got upset, no one could calm him down. Not wanting to deal with him while he was drunk, she decided to stay in the car, drink a bit herself, and rest. She ended up falling asleep in the car. When she woke up, she rushed back to her grandmother's house. During the phone call, her younger sister had asked where she was. Even though she was already at the village entrance, Shin-hae lied and said she was still at a highway checkpoint somewhere along the way. That lie became a key point for police. They suspected that she lied about her location because she had already carried out the murder and was covering it up. But Shin-hae claimed it was an instinctive white lie. She didn't want her grandmother to know she had arrived but had stopped to see friends first instead of coming straight home, which might have hurt her feelings. Regarding her claim of having an alibi, her two friends Park and Kwan came forward and confirmed that they had, in fact, received her call that night. In tears, they said, "If only we had met Shin-hae that night, maybe none of this would have happened." However, despite having two witnesses to back her alibi, the police remained skeptical. They argued that Kim Shin-hae may have deliberately called her friends in the early morning hours, knowing they wouldn't be able to meet, in order to create a seemingly plausible alibi. As for the notebook and insurance policies, which raised red flags during the investigation, Kim Shin-hae offered her explanation. She claimed that her dream was to become a screenwriter, and she often jotted down story ideas and plot points in her notebook. The alarming words found in it, she said, were simply part of a fictional story she was developing, not a murder plan. Regarding the 8 traffic accident insurance policies she had taken out under her father's name, she explained that this occurred during a period when insurance agents were aggressively marketing door-to-door. Because her father, Kim Jae-hoon, was disabled, he didn't qualify for regular life insurance policies, so she thought it might be better to sign up for several accident insurance plans first, compare them later, and cancel those that didn't fit. In fact, at the time of the incident, 3 of the 8 policies had already been canceled. In addition, Kim Shin-hae intentionally disclosed her father's disability when applying for the policies, which was actually a violation of insurance disclosure requirements. By regulation, these insurance policies only pay out if the accident occurs at least 2 years after the policy begins. Kim Shin-hae had previously worked at her aunt's insurance company, so it's clear she fully understood these terms. Which raises a question. If her motive had really been insurance fraud, why would she stage a fake accident only 2 months after taking out the policies, knowing it would be ineligible for a payout? Furthermore, even if, due to negligence, the insurance company had paid out the claim, Kim Shin-hae wouldn't have received the money. The primary beneficiary was her father's wife, meaning Shin-hae's stepmother, not her. That detail made the insurance motive even more puzzling. Shin-hae also firmly stated that, from the moment she was arrested, she consistently denied being the killer. But the police, she claimed, ignored her pleas and conducted an investigation that was biased and coercive. She alleged that the interrogations were filled with verbal abuse, physical intimidation, and that officers even forced her to give a fingerprint on documents. Police, for their part, denied all allegations of misconduct. On April 1st, 2000, the police formally charged Kim Shin-hae with parricide, killing a parent, and abandoning a body, and recommended the death penalty. After going through a trial, appeal, and Supreme Court review, the Supreme Court ultimately sentenced her to life in prison. But even behind bars, Kim Shin-hae never gave up claiming her innocence. She repeatedly submitted petitions to government agencies, civil rights groups, and media outlets, pleading for her case to be re-examined. Eventually, attorney Park Jun-young, known for handling several high-profile retrial cases in South Korea, took notice of her story, and so began her long journey toward a retrial. At the time, she was just 27 years old. That journey would last 25 years. According to Attorney Park, when he investigated the original case, he discovered serious flaws in police procedure and logical inconsistencies in the case narrative. First and foremost, the biggest issue was that police had fixated on Kim Shin-hae as the sole suspect from the very beginning. While it's true that she initially confessed under the principle of innocent until proven guilty, the police should have considered multiple possibilities. Instead, they pursued a single-target investigation, which meant they failed to collect critical evidence during the early stages. Once Shin-hae retracted her confession, there was no strong physical evidence left to support the charges. One major piece of evidence in the case was the sleeping pills, believed to be the murder weapon. According to the police's initial theory, Kim Shin-hae crushed 30 sleeping pills into a bowl and mixed the powder into alcohol. She then wiped away any remaining residue with a cloth and threw it in the trash. However, medically speaking, when someone ingests 30 grams of sleeping pills containing doxylamine, the average blood concentration would be about 4.7 micrograms per milliliter. In this case, the victim, Kim Jae-hoon, was found with a blood concentration of 1,302 micrograms per milliliter, meaning that to reach such a level, he would have had to ingest the equivalent of at least 100 pills or more. So the question is, where did Kim Shin-hae obtain that large quantity of medication? The police never found any proof of her purchasing the pills, nor did they find traces of the drug in the bowl, cloth, wine bottle, or drinking glass that the victim allegedly used. Realistically, grinding that many pills into powder would make it difficult to dissolve completely in alcohol. A drink with that much residue would be visibly suspicious. So would Kim Jae-hoon really have consumed it without question? Even if he had, the effects of that dosage would have knocked him unconscious almost instantly. So how could he have possibly walked downstairs and gone for a drive? Even more implausible, Kim Jae-hoon was not a small man, and Kim Shin-hae, at just 5 feet 1 inch and 84 pounds, would have had a hard time moving his body alone. And crucially, forensic investigators never found blood, hair, or any physical trace of the victim in the car that Kim Shin-hae had rented. Although forensic tools at the time were limited, it remains true that there was not a single piece of conclusive evidence proving she committed the murder. In addition, the police were found to have violated legal procedure during the investigation. They arrested Kim Shin-hae, searched her home, and collected evidence without a proper warrant. Worse, only one of the two people conducting the search was a licensed police officer. The other was a friend of his, currently serving in the military. This rendered the entire search technically illegal, and any evidence collected in that manner was inadmissible in court. In summary, the evidence used to convict Kim Shin-hae was riddled with problems. Aside from her initial confession, which she later retracted, there was no solid physical proof of guilt, and in fact, several pieces of evidence seemed to point to her innocence. Yet even under these conditions, she was sentenced to life in prison. As the story gained attention through the media, it ignited a nationwide debate and brought a new turning point in Kim Shin-hae's long fight for justice. In January 2015, the Korean Bar Association officially submitted a petition for retrial on her behalf. By then, 15 years had passed since the case first began. Later that year, in November, the Gwangju District Court granted her retrial request during a preliminary hearing. The first time in South Korean history that a prisoner serving a life sentence had been granted a retrial. However, the prosecution appealed the decision, leading to a long and complicated judicial battle. It wasn't until 2018 that the retrial was officially confirmed. Even then, Kim Shin-hae had to wait another 7 years. Finally, on January 6, 2025, the retrial reached its most pivotal moment. The court declared Kim Shin-hae not guilty during the first retrial hearing. The ruling stated that all evidence obtained through illegal search and seizure was invalid, and that no decisive evidence existed to prove Kim Shin-hae committed the crime. Moreover, The court noted that it was entirely plausible her original confession had been false or coerced. Therefore, the court officially declared her innocent. And so, the woman who was arrested in the year 2000 for killing her father and sentenced to life in prison finally walked out of the prison that had held her throughout her youth in the winter of 2025. Kim Shin-hai will now await her appeal trial outside of custody. If she is found not guilty in both the appeals and the Supreme Court, she will become the wrongfully convicted individual with the longest prison term in South Korean history. Under current law, Kim Shin-hai would be entitled to receive criminal compensation totaling tens of billions of won, in addition to state reparations. In February 2025, South Korea's investigative program, I Want to Know the Truth, aired a post-trial interview revealing the shocking state of Kim Shin-hai's life after prison. According to the report, after being released, she lived with her younger brother, her legal guardian, but began showing signs of severe paranoia. She claimed she was a Russian royal, the heir to a Chinese billionaire, and therefore immune to prosecution and exempt from court proceedings. She further alleged that her real brother had died long ago, and that the person now living with her was actually a military dictator from North Korea, sent to monitor her. Her statements were rambling and incoherent, filled with delusional narratives. At one point, she even handed reporters a notebook filled with cryptic codes, claiming it contained proof that her father, Kim Jae-hoon, had kidnapped her in the past. On another day, she packed a bag and suddenly left home. Reporters searched for hours before finding her at a local police station, where she refused to return home, insisting that everything around her was part of a giant conspiracy and that she needed to flee to China to escape abuse. Back in 2015, when the retrial process began, Kim Shin-hai was full of hope and confidence, believing she would soon be released and regain her freedom. But the slow and drawn-out retrial process took its toll. Hope gave way to frustration, and eventually, deep mistrust of everyone around her. She built a mental defense system where she believed only she could be trusted, and that everyone else was part of a conspiracy to destroy her. Because of this, during the 10-year retrial battle, she fired her attorney, Park Jun-young, a total of 11 times due to her persecutory delusions. Each time she fired him, her younger brother had to privately rehire the lawyer behind her back just to keep the legal process moving. This constant disruption significantly delayed the retrial. During her 25 years in prison, Kim Shin-hai never stopped declaring her innocence. She requested solitary confinement, rarely interacted with other inmates, and spent every day writing about the injustice she believed she suffered. Over so many years, it became difficult not to develop mental health issues. Her family has grown deeply concerned that she may soon act unpredictably, and if anything dangerous were to happen, the consequences would be unimaginable. As a result, she has been admitted to a psychiatric hospital. Mental health professionals say that if her condition does not improve, the next round of legal proceedings may need to continue without her physical presence in court. So even though Kim Shin-hai is out of prison, she has not yet regained true freedom. Those 25 years behind bars not only robbed her of her youth, but may have also taken away her ability to live a normal life. Meanwhile, with Kim Shin-hai now formally declared innocent, the murder case on Wando Island remains unsolved. To this day, the case is filled with unanswered questions. For example, why did her uncle, a man who had no blood relation and little contact with her immediate family, play such an active role in the case? Between Kim Shin-hai and her uncle, someone is clearly lying. But who is it? Who is telling the truth? And who fabricated the entire story? And even if her uncle did pressure Kim Shin-hai into taking the blame for her brother, why did she go along with it without any resistance? Was her love for her younger brother really that deep? Her decision remains difficult to understand. If her uncle was lying, then why would he do that? He had no direct conflict of interest with the victim. He had a verified alibi for that night, and there was no apparent motive or opportunity for him to commit the crime. But if neither the uncle nor Kim Shin-hai was the killer, then who silently carried out the murder and hid it for 25 years? Of course, the not guilty verdict handed down by the court only proves that there is currently no evidence that can convict Kim Shin-hai. It does not prove her complete innocence. While Kim Shin-hae continues to insist she is not guilty, it remains difficult for her to fully escape public suspicion. The initial confession, the suspicious insurance policies, the 4-hour window with no alibi after arriving on Wando Island, the notebook filled with questionable notes. They all leave behind lingering doubts and heartbreaking questions. So, what do you think? Was Kim Shin-hae really the killer, or was there someone else out there who committed the crime and got away with it? Let us know your theories in the comments. We'll be following any further developments in this mysterious case. Until then, stay alert and stay safe. We'll see you in the next episode.